Hello everyone, welcome to Moonride. This is Dave Johnson. I'm chatting the man in the moon today. I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit about two topics. The first one is money for Ukraine. It looks like the Republicans really might not give the money to Ukraine. Well, on treason, we have vested interests in keeping the Russians out of Europe. It's hard to believe that a portion of our government is actually working against the United States of America and its interests. The other question, of course, is the Supreme Court. They're looking at several cases. I'm very interested in the one about whether it is legal to obstruct. So, for example, they've used these obstruction of official proceeding charges to put a bunch of guys in prison because that's how they're sort of lowering the bar in a sense. They could charge these people with treason or something like that, but instead they've charged them with obstruction of the official proceeding, and the Supreme Court will take a look. Don't miss this case. It's extremely important. Many of the people who attacked the Capitol could actually go free, and we could just have a free-for-all. If you want to just obstruct, you can just obstruct. Depending on your feelings, you might be able to do that according to the Supreme Court. Let's take a look first at Ukraine, which I also think is really, really, really important. Let's take a look at Ukraine. Okay, so I see a sad Ukraine. The image of their leader is him crying. But there's also resolve. So Zelenskyy is now kind of in the shape of a pyramid, putting his hands on his hips, and he's like, well, I guess I gotta do it. Ooh, he's climbing up a chain. It's really hard work for him. It's like, oh, hope there's no oil on the chain. If I get an oil patch, I'm in trouble. He's climbing up this thing. Mm. He gets to the top of wherever, like a landing, and then he's got to rest. And so he just gets off and he's just like, oh man, that was tough. Now, when he does it, there's light. There's like a horizon and the sun is rising and he's exhausted but relieved. He's now showing me a muscle. So, Spirit, does this mean that he gets help from the United States? I'm not so sure he does. So let's make sure here. Does he ultimately get help? He does get help from the United States. It's just late in coming, and it was unnecessary. The delay did not benefit anyone. It certainly didn't benefit Ukraine or the United States. 3 months, 4 months, something like this. There's a lot of work, a lot of battling, a lot of lives lost until that point. Mm. What else can we know, Spirit, about how this rescue comes about? Oh, well, this is a really cool image. A little dog shows up, and the dog runs up to Zelenskyy with a little note in its mouth. Zelenskyy he takes the note and he opens it up, and there's something important in there, like some kind of strategy or some kind of sneaky way that Biden has lent him help. There is something in there that is of real value to him. So I feel like Biden knows very much the game that is being played by the Republicans, and sort of in a secret way, he is doing what he can for Zelenskyy. It's obviously very important for Biden to win this election and for Democrats to come out strong on this issue. But Biden's got a lot of things on his plate right now. Israel and Palestine are essentially at war right now. So that's taking up all the oxygen. And it's a good wedge issue for the Republicans because they know that it will divide the Democrats to some degree. Okay, so yeah, really, the light at the end of the tunnel is Biden. There are others that are helping. There are good people in Europe who will also help. There are people in Europe who will take up arms to defend Ukraine because it's defense of their homeland too. It's not that far to Germany. It's not that far to Hungary. There are very strong-minded individuals in Europe, and in some ways, this is not a bad thing. It's sort of like they need to stop being, wet noodles, stop being dependent on others, and, take their power. It's like they're underestimating their power in Europe and underestimating their resolve and not necessarily thinking these things to their conclusions, and this will inspire them. So let's just take one more look at Zelenskyy. I get him reunited with his family. There's sort of the outline of children and wife that are coming nearby him, and it just seems like family together. To me, that has a feeling of success for Ukraine. After a great deal of difficulty, the peoples of the Ukraine are reunited. So let's take a look then at the next topic, which is the Supreme Court and their decision. Ooh, what a dark place this is. When I say that, I shouldn't say dark. I should say there is a shadow, because that's the way that it appears. There's a whole shadow cast across the Supreme Court of this sort of partisan nonsense. There really shouldn't be any question about some of these laws. There should be no question that some of the justices should step aside. They are biased in this case. But Clarence Thomas is saying, no way, I got my finger on that button and I'm going to press it, period. Yeah, it's always the people who think that they are right. It's this unquestioned, they don't question anything, they believe everything that they think. There's no flexibility and no real reality. They've come to this with a fixed idea of what is right and what is wrong, and it is not going to change. That has some value in some circumstances. We don't want our Constitution to be misinterpreted, but it's not about our Constitution. It's about something way, way, way earlier in the hearts of these people. They see the Constitution as a thing to be manipulated, not as a set of guidelines. So I get that actually three of the justices are not they will vote to overturn the law. And maybe two and a half. It's almost like the third person has a different reason. The first two people have the same reason, and it's just essentially whatever helps MAGA, that's what we are going to support. I think Alito is out there with a sort of, maybe slightly alternative. It might be Gorsuch. I think those three are the ones that are the biggest problems. But I don't get even from the other Republicans, there's sort of like an Amy Coney Barrett idea of, well, I'm a Republican, but I do believe in law and order. And we do have to have something to stop people from breaking into the Capitol and stopping an election. It's just fundamental for some of these people. The ramifications of what will happen are extraordinary. Look, if these people aren't prosecuted for attacking the Capitol, pretty much you can attack any Capitol and there are no charges against you. So realistically, the Republicans in that body, a few of them are just like, this is completely nuts. It's totally impractical. It's interesting that some of them, maybe half the Republicans are complete partisan hacks. They will decide anything that benefits the Republicans no matter what, even if it's unconstitutional. Three of them have some scruples. Don't suppose that I like them or trust them for the most part. It is always through the lens of their particular religion that they see these things. Maybe ideology, maybe religion. But at the same time, there are certain principles that we all learned in first grade, like, hey, this is a democracy and we should keep it a democracy, that they are at least supporting. So they're not happy necessarily about the political fallout that they're going to get from just making these decisions, but they also realize how troublesome it will be if they don't do the right thing now. Of course, all the Democrats, there's no question about how they're going to vote for this. It's really an interesting metaphor that, for the most part, Republicans are pretty much will do and say anything as long as it supports their party. But notice that there's a split. Half of them will bend things only so far to suit the narrative. They won't go all the way over the top. They're not entirely, they do not wish to appear to be entirely hypocritical and completely bound to their political objectives. They do wish to appear as members of the judiciary and not members of a political body. That's the difference, and it tells us a lot about the Republicans in general. Half of them are totally nuts. The other half of them are, jaded perhaps, but they don't necessarily want to see the end of democracy. They still share many of the values that we share. It's just coded in a different way than for other Americans. I think that this is important. It also has a feeling of being, it's very important that a bipartisan group of people let everyone know what the rules are. And a bipartisan group of people has said, yes, these people who stormed the Capitol were wrong. No one could say it was a Democratic decision, was a Democrat. And when I say Democrat, I mean the party. No one can say that if three of the Republicans are on the same side as the Democrats. So, again, everybody, I want you to remember a lot of this is good news. A lot of the things that keep happening in the past few years really are good news. It's a pity that the left doesn't have the advertising body that the right does, but it's not necessarily enough for us to leave democracy aside. There are a good many people who are Republican but still do believe in the nation. It's important that we all notice the difference between members of the Republican Party, and it's very important that we notice that what we're going through is positive in some way. We are learning more about our democracy every day. We are demonstrating to the world every day that we remain a democracy because of our judiciary, which is independent. I hope out of this we all walk away proud that whatever the conditions, we have maintained our democracy insofar as we have the power to maintain our democracy. There are forces that work against it, but over and over, those forces have been defeated. Thanks so much for watching.